When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do.
When we look at the magic of Cinderella's castle, we'd never realize just how much geometry makes up this beautiful piece of architecture. All the Euclidean shapes that the stone creates, or the way the pillars are reflections of each other. Throughout this video, we're going to break apart the castle and really look at what the architect was trying to portray when building such a memorable castle that put a smile on so many faces. The one thing every castle has to have is a beautiful garden. When the architect designed the garden, the trees create a horizontal horizon that goes through the center of the castle. There are also two more horizontal horizons farther down that separate the sections of the garden. The way the garden is layered, it accentuates the castle. The castle is still the most important thing, and the garden is there to add to the beauty of it. On this side of the castle, you can still see the horizontal horizon that the trees create through the center of the castle. But on this side, the next horizontal line is created at the bottom where the water is. This separates it into three sections, creating focus on the top of the castle, the middle, and the bottom where the river is. This side of the castle creates more of a medieval look. In this picture alone, there are multiple shapes going on, both 3D and 2D. If you look closely, there are blue cones placed at the top of each pillar. You can also see that the bricks are the shape of a rectangle, and above that the windows are shaped like squares. The pillars themselves are shaped like cylinders. Let's see what other shapes we can find. Here I want you to see the rhombuses on the flat blue part on the top of the pillar. If you were to manipulate them, no matter what, they would translate to create the same shape. This would be one example of translation. In this angle, you can see the circle that makes up the clock at the top. The circle itself is in the shape of the triangle, and within that you can see that there are diamonds in the center that are rotated to fit perfectly against each other. The architect is using shapes within shapes to create such fine detail. As we pointed out earlier, some of the top of the pillars are shaped like cones, but as we can look at this picture, there are a few that are rectangular prisms. As we look closely, we can see the difference, but from afar it would be difficult to point out. If you were to look at the two pillars in front along with the centerpiece, that is an example of a vertical reflection. There is no horizontal reflections in this example, but if you look, you can find multiple examples of vertical reflection. That is showing that the two pillars are reflections of each other. If you were to fold this in half, it would line up piece for piece. If you look, you can see that every window is made up of a different shape. The window in the center are made up of squares and rectangles, yet on the side, the windows are in shapes of pentagons. In this picture, if you notice that there are cylinders that continue to get smaller until they create the shape of the cone on top. He then uses the squares to make up the windows. It almost seems like each of these are an exact replica of each other. Here I want to point out the use of rotation of the shapes inside the rectangle that create the bridge that goes across the middle and on the stairs. If you look at the triangles, they are rotated at a 180-degree angle to make it look more like a Y than a triangle. If you look at this picture in particular, you can see the emphasis of the triangles in the windows. This is where if you dine inside the castle, you can look out and see Fantasyland. This part of the castle is different from any of the other parts because it represents an important room. The use of the pentagon windows that are then made up of triangles and rectangles create a different look, putting emphasis on this part of the castle. Here you can see the use of rectangles and squares quite prominently. This is how most castles in Europe in medieval times looked and were made mostly of rectangular cylinder blocks. This use of the rectangles gives it that type of feel. This picture represents everything that the castle is about. It shows just how dominant it is inside the park, but also it represents the little girl dressed up as a princess looking at the castle. Here is where every little girl feels like a princess, and this castle captures it all. The statue of Walt Disney and Mickey in front of the castle represents how if you just believe, anything can happen. It represents dreams and hope. Besides Mickey, Cinderella's castle represents Disney for what it is, a magical place. This picture here represents what the architect was trying to create when he created the castle. When you first walk into Disney, this is what you see. The castle is what every family takes pictures in front of, and it is the one reason you go to Disney. It is centered in the middle of the park, and every night you go to the castle for the fireworks spectacular. It is designed to bring to life the fairy tale every boy and girl dreams about. It is the place where dreams come true.